All right, guys. So for honors, we also have to deal with classical naming. Classical naming is an older sister of naming ions that uses the root word, and then it adds a suffix to signify the charge. This is not as widely used anymore. However, it does get used whenever we are ordering chemicals and stuff. So you may see this on chemical bottles. For transition metals that do have multiple charges, we take the root of the element name, and you're going to have to do this for some of them that have their Latin names. So some of the elements where the symbol does not match the name, it is because it comes from its Latin name. So for example, ferrum is the Latin name for iron. So the root of ferrum is going to be that fer. And then we're going to add a suffix to tell us if it is the cation with the higher charge or the cation with the lower charge. So the suffix of ous is used to name the cation with the lower charge. And then the suffix of ik is used to name the cation with the higher charge. So iron can either be a +2 or a +3. So +2 is the lower charge. That is going to be ferrous. Whereas iron 3 is the higher charge, so it would be referred to as ferric. And like I said, this is not as widely used anymore, except for on chemical bottles and stuff. The big disadvantage of the classical system is that it tells you that the charge is the higher one or lower one, but it does not tell you what the charge actually is. So you have to remember the charges for these transition metals. So you guys are going to have 5 that you were responsible for. Iron is your first one. So you need to remember that iron can be a +2 or a +3. So it will be ferrous or ferric. And let's look at the other 4 that you're going to be responsible for. So the other 4 that you have to do, the next one is copper. Copper symbol is Cu. That comes from its Latin name of cuprum. Copper can either be a +1 or a +2 charge. So copper 1 is the lower charge. That will be cuprous. And copper 2 is the higher charge. So that will be cupric. You also need to know gold. Gold symbol is Au. That comes from the Latin name aurum. Gold can either be a +1 or a +3 charge. So +1 is the lower charge, so that's going to be aurus. Gold 3 is the higher charge, so that will be auric. Lead is another one where the symbol does not match the name. Lead is Pb. That comes from the Latin name plumbum. And lead can either be a +2 or a +4 charge. So lead 2 is the lower charge. This is going to be plumbus. While lead 4 is the higher charge, that will be plumbic. And then we have tin. Tin is Sn, which comes from the Latin name stannum. And it has those same charges as lead, the 2 and the 4. So tin 2 is going to be stannous. Tin 4 is the higher charge. That will be stannic. So that is the only kind of additional thing that you need to add on for transition metals. You can do this with other elements, but you are only going to be responsible for doing this with these 5. So remember, you need to add classical if it is iron, copper, gold, lead, or tin. And like I said, we can do this with the other transition metals, but we do not have to. So like mercury can be a +1 or a +2, but these use the English root instead of the Latin root. So there would be a mercurus and a mercuric. But you do not have to memorize the charges of the other transition metals. So to show you how this works, I'm going to go back to our examples that we did in the other video. So we had tin 2 fluoride, tin 4 sulfide, and we won't have to do it with chromium. But we had chromium 3 nitride. And then we had written out the iron 3 oxide and copper 2 sulfide. So that's what we did in the previous video, just naming with the stock system and writing formulas. If we wanted to add the classical system in here, so you'll have to do that for those 5. Tin was one of your 5 that had the Latin root. So tin we said could either be a +2 or a +4. We said tin 2 was the lower charge, so that was the stannous. And then we would simply add the anion name. So that would be stannous fluoride would be the classical name for tin 2 fluoride. For tin 4 sulfide, that's the higher charge, so that would be stannic. And then the anion, so sulfide. So notice you don't have Roman numerals with those. You simply substitute out that stock name. We would not need to do classical with chromium because it is not one of our 5. But we can do classical with the iron. So iron 3 oxide, we said iron can be a +2 or a +3. +3 is the higher charge, so we said this would be ferric. And then oxide would be our anion name. Same thing with the copper 2 sulfide. We said copper can either be +1 or +2. Copper 2 is the higher charge, so this would be cupric. So this is cupric sulfide. So you were able to add that on to your homework, and anything that had one of those 5 that could have been classical, you need to add a classical name for.